Hi there. Real quick before we jump into the episode. If you enjoy this episode, or any of the other episodes, be sure to give us a follow or subscribe. It would also be great if you shared it with a friend, or better yet, left a review so others can know how awesome it is. Thanks so much. And now, the episode.
Hey there, Press Starters, and welcome to the Press Start Leadership Podcast, the podcast about game-changing leadership, teaching you how to get the most out of your product and development team and become the leader you were meant to be. Leadership coaching and training for the international game industry professional. Now, let me introduce you to your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Mifsud.
Hey there, Press Starters, and welcome back to another awesome edition of the Press Start Leadership Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing lessons from lean times in the game industry, balancing the yin and yang for long-term success. How video game industry leaders can carry lessons from lean times into good times by embracing balance, empathy, and sustainable practices. The video game industry is not a straight line of progress. It moves in cycles, shifting between boom periods of innovation, investment, and record-breaking profits, and lean times defined by layoffs, budget cuts, and canceled projects. These ups and downs are not random. They are part of the rhythm of a complex and ever-changing industry. For leaders, the challenge is not just surviving the lean times, but learning from them. Lean times reveal truths about resourcefulness, discipline, and resilience. They strip away the excess and force studios and leaders to focus on what really matters. The question is whether leaders in the game industry will carry those lessons into the good times that follow, or whether they will repeat the same mistakes that led for instability in the first place. This podcast explores the lessons leaders should learn during lean times, how to balance the yin with the yang of scarcity and abundance, and how to create sustainable practices that endure through every cycle of the video game industry. Most importantly, it provides actionable steps leaders can take to align their studios with long-term stability, creativity, and human-centered leadership. The yin and yang of the game industry. The concept of yin and yang comes from Chinese philosophy and symbolizes the interconnectedness of opposites. Yin represents qualities like stillness, reflection, and conservation, and yang represents action, expansion, and outward energy. Both are necessary. In fact, each contains the seed of the other. In the game industry, lean times can be seen as yin, moments of scarcity that require reflection, careful use of resources, and disciplined strategy. Good times are yang, periods of growth, abundance, and rapid expansion. Problems arise when leaders lean too heavily on one side. Endless expansion without restraint leads to overextension. Endless contraction without vision leads to stagnation. Balance is the key. Leaders who honor the lessons of yin during scarcity and apply them during yang periods of growth will create healthier, more resilient studios. The dangers of forgetting lean time lessons. One of the most common mistakes in the video game industry is that when good times return, leaders quickly forget the lessons learned during lean periods. Studios may overhire, overspend on unnecessary tools, or chase unsustainable growth. Investors demand rapid returns, and leaders give in, assuming the abundance will never end. The result is predictable. The next downturn arrives, and the studios are caught off guard. Layoffs sweep through the industry, projects are canceled, and the cycle of instability continues. To break this pattern, leaders must consciously carry lean time lessons into every stage of the cycle. Lessons lean times teach the game industry. Focus on core strengths. Lean times force studios to ask hard questions. What are we truly good at? What value do we uniquely offer players? What projects are essential, and what is distracting fluff? During abundance, it is tempting to pursue multiple projects at once or chase every new trend. Lean times remind leaders that strength lies in focus. Studios that survive downturns often do so because they concentrate on their core competencies. An actionable step. Create a core first distraction review for your studio. List all ongoing projects and initiatives. Identify which align directly with your studio's mission and strengths. Deprioritize or pause anything that does not serve that core. Practice financial discipline. Lean times reveal how fragile financial planning can be. Many studios rely heavily on external funding or short-term cash injections. When money dries up, the lack of reserves become catastrophic. The lesson is simple, but often ignored. Build reserves during the good times. Treat profitability as an opportunity to prepare for the inevitable downturns. Actionable step. Establish a financial buffer equivalent to at least 6 months of operating expenses. During profitable periods, dedicate a portion of revenue to this buffer rather than spending everything on expansion. Value human capital. Layoffs are often an industry's first reaction to financial strain, yet lean times highlight just how important human capital is. Teams that stay together during crisis often emerge stronger, more cohesive, and more innovative. Cutting staff without strategy undermines long-term stability. Actionable step. Before considering layoffs, evaluate alternatives such as reduced hours, voluntary sabbaticals, or temporary project shifts. Communicate openly with staff about challenges and involve them in problem solving. Empathy during scarcity builds loyalty that endures in abundance. Innovate within constraints. Some of the most creative breakthroughs in the video game industry emerge from lean times. Scarcity forces developers to innovate, streamline mechanics, and think differently. Smaller teams often deliver groundbreaking experiences because they cannot afford bloated systems. Actionable step. Use lean times as an opportunity to experiment. Encourage teams to develop prototypes with limited resources. Frame constraints as creative prompts rather than obstacles. Document these lessons and apply them even when resources return. Build sustainable cultures. Lean times expose unhealthy studio cultures. Crunch, poor communication, and lack of transparency become unsustainable when resources are thin. Studios that prioritize empathy, transparency, and sustainability in lean times are better positioned to thrive when growth returns. Actionable step. Conduct culture audits during lean periods. Survey staff about well-being, communication, and workload. Use this data to implement changes that create sustainable practices, not just emergency measures. Strengthen community engagement. Players often become even more critical during lean times, scrutinizing monetization practices and value for money. Studios that treat communities with respect, transparency, and empathy during tough periods build trust that pays off when growth returns. Actionable step. Maintain open communication channels with your community. Share updates honestly, even if they contain delays or challenges. Reward loyalty with transparency and authentic engagement rather than exploitative monetization. Reassess scope and ambition. Lean times teach the importance of scope discipline. Ambitious projects are inspiring, but without realistic boundaries, they collapse under their own weight. Lean times force leaders to reassess what is truly achievable. Actionable step. Apply lean time scope discipline to all projects, regardless of financial climate. Use milestone-based development to evaluate progress and pivot before overcommitting resources. Balancing yin and yang, carrying lean time lessons into abundance. The real test of leadership is not just surviving lean times, but applying those lessons when abundance returns. Balancing yin with yang means consciously bringing the restraint, reflection, and resourcefulness of scarcity into the energetic expansion of growth. Here are ways leaders in the game industry can maintain balance. During profitable launches, set aside reserves rather than overextending budgets. When hiring during growth, remember the human-centered approaches that work during lean times. Continue fostering creative constraints even when resources are abundant to avoid bloat. Keep communication transparent and empathetic with teams and communities at all times. Actionable step number 1. Institutionalize lean time practices. Do not let lessons fade into memory once growth returns. Document the practices that helped your studio survive. Create institutional policies that enforce these lessons. Examples: a mandatory reserve fund policy, a permanent ban on crunch with sustainable timelines enforced, a culture code that prioritizes empathy and transparency. By institutionalizing lessons, leaders ensure they are carried forward rather than forgotten. Actionable step number 2. Train leaders in duality thinking. Leaders often default to binary thinking. Lean times equal survival mode, good times equal growth mode. Balancing yin with yang requires training leaders to think in dualities. Empathetic leaders ask, how do we grow without losing discipline? How do we conserve without losing ambition? Another actionable step for this. Provide leadership training on systems thinking, resilience, and sustainable growth. Encourage leaders to analyze decisions through the lens of both scarcity and abundance. Actionable step number 3. Build scalable systems. Scalability is the bridge between lean times and good times. Systems built during scarcity should be designed to expand gracefully during growth. Examples. Project management pipelines that work for small teams but can scale up. Communication tools that handle both lean and expanding staffing. Financial models that account for fluctuations in revenue. Another actionable step here. Audit your current systems for scalability. Identify where processes will break if the teams double in size or if revenue drops suddenly. Adapt now before extremes arrive. Actionable step number 4. Create a culture of reflection. Lean times invite reflection, but leaders often abandon this practice when things improve. Building reflection in a studio culture ensures balance. Another actionable step here. Schedule quarterly reflection sessions with leadership and staff. Ask, what lessons from lean times still apply? What practices should continue even during growth? Document outcomes and incorporate them in the strategy. Actionable step number 5. Maintain transparency with teams and stakeholders. During lean times, leaders often learn the importance of clear communication. Teams rally more effectively when they know the reality of the situation. Unfortunately, when good times return, transparency often fades as leaders revert to secrecy and top-down decision-making. If empathy and honesty worked when survival was on the line, they will work just as well when growth resumes. Practical ways to carry transparency forward. Hold regular all-hands meetings even when there is good news to share. Make financial and project health reports accessible to teams. Encourage upward feedback so leaders hear problems before they become crisis. Transparency balances yin with yang by honoring the reflective lessons of scarcity while guiding expansion with clarity. Actionable step number 6. Build partnerships instead of exploitation. Lean times often show studios how reliantly they are on partnerships, whether with publishers, contractors, or platform holders. These relationships can be lifelines, but only if they are based on trust. In the spirit of yin and yang, partnerships must not be seen as opportunities to extract maximum profit, but as shared paths to resilience. How to apply this lesson in good times? Negotiate contracts that respect fair timelines and compensation. Share credit with collaborators rather than claiming ownership of all success. Support small studios or contractors during your periods of abundance. Partnerships based on empathy rather than exploitation ensure that when lean times return, you have allies instead of adversaries. Actionable step number 7. Diversify without losing focus. Lean times remind leaders not to put all their eggs in one basket. Over-reliance on a single project, funding source, or platform often becomes fatal when conditions shift. Diversification is critical, yet too much diversification during good times can become another trap, stretching studios thin. Balance lies in smart diversification that aligns with core strengths. Another actionable step here. Identify 2 or 3 complementary revenue streams that do not pull your studio too far from its mission. Examples include contract work, DLC expansions, or publishing partnerships. Avoid diversifying in the areas that dilute focus or exhaust teams. Actionable step number 8. Carry over empathy into player relations. In lean times, many studios are forced to lean on their communities for support. Crowdfunding campaigns, early access programs, and transparent development diaries thrive during scarcity. Yet, once a studio achieves commercial success, some leaders distance themselves from their players. Empathy is not seasonal. Players who felt valued during lean times must continue to feel valued during good times. Practical strategies. Continue community updates post-launch, not just when making a sequel. Offer fair pricing models and avoid exploitive monetization. Celebrate your community with events, spotlights, or user-generated content showcases. Carrying forward empathetic community practices strengthens loyalty across entire franchise cycles. The role of leadership in balancing yin and yang. Leaders in the video game industry are the stewards of balance. It is their responsibility to integrate the reflective lessons of lean times with the expansive opportunities of growth. This requires humility, foresight, and discipline. Key leadership qualities for balancing yin with yang include humility. recognizing that abundance is temporary and scarcity will return. Discipline, resisting the temptation to overextend during growth. Empathy, treating people and players with respect regardless of financial climate. And vision, looking beyond the cycle to build sustainable legacies. Without these qualities, leaders risk repeating the mistake of the past. Building a studio culture that honors both yin and yang. Cultures are shaped not only by leadership decisions, but also by daily practices. Studios that thrive across cycles create cultures that value both reflection and action, both restraint and ambition. How to embed yin and yang balances into culture. Celebrate small wins as much as big launches to maintain perspective. Encourage teams to speak up when scope feels unsustainable. Create rituals of reflection, such as quarterly postmortems that include financial and cultural review. Reinforce that well-being and creativity are as important as revenue milestones. When culture itself balances yin and yang, studios no longer swing wildly between extremes. They move through cycles with steadiness. Long-term benefits of carrying lean time lessons forward. The payoff for leaders who embrace balance is significant. Stability across cycles. Studios no longer collapse when conditions change. Stronger teams. Employees stay together and contribute more when they feel secure and respected. Healthier communities. Players reward empathetic engagement with loyalty and advocacy. Creative innovation. Balanced teams take risk in thoughtful ways, leading to more meaningful games. Investor confidence. Studios that demonstrate stability attract sustainable investment rather than speculative capital. The benefits of balance are both human and financial. Yin and yang create not only cultural health, but also competitive advantage. Final thoughts. Choosing balance over extremes. The game industry will always move through cycles of scarcity and abundance. Lean times are painful, but they are also rich with lessons about focus, discipline, and empathy. The true measure of leadership is whether those lessons are remembered when growth returns. What the game industry needs now is not just more technology, bigger budgets, or faster pipelines. It needs leaders who balance yin with yang, who carry forward the wisdom of lean times into the energy of good times. It needs empathy as much as ambition, reflection, as much as expansion. Leaders who embrace this balance will not only create more sustainable studios, but also healthier cultures and better games. The challenge is great, but the opportunity is greater. Balance is not just philosophy. It's a practical leadership strategy that can transform the future of the video game industry. All right, and that's this week's episode of the Press Start Leadership Podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, thanks for being awesome. Oh, hi. And the episode's over, but thanks for sticking around till the end. Be sure to check out more episodes in the playlist and new episodes every week on Monday. Follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to leave a review. Thanks again for being awesome.